Now, the Alberta government has laid out a proposed taxation plan for large data centers that would include a reduced tax rate for projects that bring their own power. Yesterday on the show, we spoke with the founder and CEO of the largest Canadian-owned data center provider, eStructure. Todd Coleman told us that larger data centers would likely need to turn to third-party power producers to cover their own power.
Data centers that we have operational today, which are well underneath the 75 megawatt threshold, are all grid fed. But going forward, we have a project, and we participated in the latest ASO offering of the 1.2 gigawatts, but we did that through a third-party power producer. In other words, a gas power producer. And so I think most of the operators that are real operators that are making real investment, when you're talking about 75 megawatts plus, we are already looking at third-party power producers. We're not expecting to take that off the grid.
So how do these third-party power producers work? Let's ask Duane Reid-Carlson. He's the president of EDC Associates Ltd. It's a Calgary-based consulting company that works in the electricity industry. So who are third-party electricity operators? Explain this part of the industry.
Basically, it's anybody in the electric industry that wants to build a power generation plant, which under the structure of Alberta's electricity market, that can be pretty much anyone. It goes all the way from the incumbents, the large generators that have been in Alberta for over 100 years, TransAlta, Capital Power, and ENMAX, all the way down to moms and pop shops that want to start a small solar farm or a wind farm, and the gamut of all technologies in between.
Well, okay, let's get into the gamut. Like, how are they producing energy? I mean, you mentioned wind, solar. What about diesel, gas? What else?
Natural gas is probably the largest source of energy from our generation fleet. Wind and solar have sort of increased substantially over the last 5 to 10 years in a significant way. But from an energy production perspective, they're smaller than the natural gas fired. Coal is now completely phased out as of a year or two ago. So it's largely natural gas today.
Okay. So how does a company come to this where they say, or, whether it's a mom and pop shop or a sort of legacy 100-year-old producer, where they say, okay, we're putting this onto the grid for public consumption, but we have more, or we have another part of our production outfit that we can sell to an open market to people like data centers?
Yeah, it's really a business development exercise where a company with whatever its background and skill sets are in the power generation sector, they'll choose a technology that they think would fit the market and would be economic and make a return on its investment over a period of time. So it's really, and there's people that are across all technology types. There's fringe technologies as well, and battery storage and other storage technologies and whatnot. So it's really a dealer's choice, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's who can get their project forward fast enough to the marketplace to meet whatever energy demands are coming. And obviously, data centers present the single largest load addition potential that the province has ever seen.
Yeah. And I don't want to get carried away, but if, when you look at the number of projects that are in the queue, and we had our guest yesterday say, look, those aren't all going to become data centers in Alberta. But when you look at the projects, proposed projects in the queue and what that would mean for demand, it's remarkable. So what are you hearing from your clients about powering data centers now and in the coming, 5 years or so?
Well, we work largely for the power generation sector, so we know them quite well. We know the parties and the companies involved in the technologies, and we model that in great detail. The trick to getting a power project over the finish line, getting it to its financial investment decision, and then onto construction and through to COD, all falls back to having a contract typically to sell your electricity that you produce over time to some large load. And that's what makes the data centers so attractive to the generation technology. So the two of them together, you need a load and you need a generator, So all they have to do is find commercial synergies that works for both of them and come up with a contract either to be co-located or just a commercial agreement between a power supplier and a load existing somewhere in the grid. That works as well. So as long as you can get to commercial terms, then projects like this can proceed, large-scale generation projects, to match the need of the data centers. The difference is in the time to market. A data center can come and be built in much shorter time frame than it takes to build the matching size of power generator.
Right. Okay. So that's part of the bottleneck. Now,
Yeah.
The new proposed taxation scheme would have 2% taxation for a data center that draws from the grid, 1%, so half of that if you can generate your own power, although it would still be tied into the grid for transmission, and then zilch, you're not taxed if you can just set up your own system. Can you imagine a situation where a data center is not using existing transmission infrastructure and has its own power?
It'd be quite unlikely that they would disconnect from the system just for reliability reasons. You would have to build so much redundant power generation if you were going to island your data center from the grid. So it would be unlikely. I mean, it's not out of the cards for sure. Somebody can do it if they're willing to spend the extra capital to have redundant power supplies so that their data center, has a high reliability. But I would suspect most would be connected to the grid in some way, shape, or form and would utilize it. Maybe not to the full extent because that would be more expensive. But yeah, that's the more likely configuration, I would think.
So our guest yesterday, who's operating data centers, including here in Alberta, says, look, this introduces uncertainty, which we do have some questions about how this will look and how it will work, but also sometimes uncertainty is a euphemism for taxation, which is just, undesirable for an operator, as you can understand. But on the government side, Alberta says, look, we're going to recover some revenue from this, and we're trying to incentivize the data centers to set up in the province and also to solve some of these power issues. Do you see that working, the incentive side of this for data centers to set up in Alberta and deal with their own power needs?
Well, I'm glad to see some incentives coming forward because I've always said that we should incentivize data centers to come because they provide a very large load that could solve some of the transmission cost problems that we have in the province. The problem is we've got a changing electricity market, the restructured electricity market that's underway that complicates all of that. So the decision making gets slowed down by all this uncertainty. But I'm glad to see the province stepping forward to provide some level of enticement to bring them to the province, because it seems to me that the data centers are being pulled into Alberta through generators, through landowners and developers, and through these data center developers who are looking for an AI tenant, rather than the AI companies, standing at the borders of Alberta saying, we want to be here, and it's more of a push. So it feels like it's being pulled rather than the data centers pushing us or pushing themselves into the market. So I think some amount of incentive would be good, and that would bring economic development to Alberta in a very high-tech way that would be good for the province.
Okay. I just want to give you 20 seconds on this. We're tight for time. But what do you think this means on a 5-year time horizon or 10-year time horizon, whatever it is, for the consumer, the Alberta residential power user?
In terms of future
price, reliability, whatever it is, all the you're talking about benefits.
Yeah, well, like I said, data centers coming to the province would bring some valuable load that would spread the high costs of transmission and distribution that have somewhat been overbuilt over the last couple of decades. So it would bring those prices down. So it's good from that perspective. It might drive up the demand for electricity that would push up on prices a little bit. But we're in a trough right now. Prices are very low, unsustainably low, so they're likely to go up anyway. But I don't see them going exploding just because we're adding a bit of load, particularly if we're matching it with generation as they're coming along. So it should provide more generation, more reliability, and more stable system.